Life advice. The email address again, lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. What up, Steve? What up, Kyle? Speaking of Steve, Ceruti in Portugal, we have somebody checking in saying that he doesn't have a question, but he and his wife will be in Portugal around the same time Ceruti's going. We get there August 1st. That's today. It'd be cool to watch a women's, not female, World Cup match with fellow American as we play in the round of 16 or quarterfinals. We'll be in Porto, not El Porto.
Oh,
Porto.
Couple issues here. One, I'll be in Lisbon or around Lisbon, so I don't know.
Oh, he says Lisbon. He says between the 1st and the 14th. Here's the real question. Would you meet up with a stranger who emails in to watch a soccer match with?
I don't think so. Only because if I was there I'm only there for a couple days, and my wife is like really excited about just like, we haven't really taken a vacation. I know everybody's like, oh, you had 3 months off from maternity. All right, we haven't really taken that much time off since then. Yeah, so she's excited about a couple days that we can spend on the beach. So I don't know that she'd be pumped, be like, hey, honey, I'm just going to dip out for a couple hours with this guy I don't really know. I'm sure you're awesome. But
he's bringing his wife, though, the emailer. Yeah. So maybe the four of you guys get together.
It's always just a risk. You know, you're just going to meet up with a rando.
It says also maybe. I'm into wife swapping, which I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that definitely.
It's weird. I didn't read that.
How about this? Should be a DM? You never know.
If he looks really good, if he was like a really attractive guy, you'd probably meet up with him.
This guy looks like he knows his way around Portugal. Yeah, maybe I would. But I don't know. It's a tough sell for the wife. That's the kind of the issue.
Kyle, you were shaking your head ferociously.
Well, I'd rather just be like set upon, you know what I mean, than like, all right, we're gonna like schedule a date for a dude who like clearly like is a fan on some level, but also feels like he knows me. I'd rather just be like, somebody be like, hey, I heard you were going to be here or something, rather than like setting it up. So sometimes though, like if I'm in a place, I'll be like, oh, looks like we're going to this place. And then it's like, if you want to go there, you can see me, but I'm not like, I'm not making a date. I don't want you to feel special enough. I want to be able to totally exit out of there if I get some vibes that I don't like. So I like to make it impersonal. And then if dudes want to show up, they can.
Yeah. Okay. But so you're saying if somebody like you were going to Portugal, Kyle, and then a guy emailed in was like, I know the best dive bars in this area, whatever, you would be like, well, hey, maybe I'll see you. You would not do anything like coordinated, is what you're saying.
You know what I might even do? Maybe this sounds crazy. If a guy's like, hey, I like sends me a DM in my request and I see it, I might then put out a public tweet like, hey, any good dive bars in Portugal? Hopefully that guy answers via the one-way tweet replies instead of in the DMs thing. Like I'm like that even weird about it. I might even give him an opportunity to do it on the public forum so we can keep it in a space where I'm comfortable with.
One-on-one's tough too. You know, if it was like a group, how do I listen? I'm not saying this guy's not awesome. Maybe it's a great time and I'm missing out on an awesome situation. But man, one-on-one, somebody you don't know, and then the wives are involved. It's also one thing, you know, after show. Like I love chatting people up at the live show in New York. Kyle and I talked to like 1 million people. It's awesome. It's great to like, you know,
stick and move.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, it's 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You know, a couple hours. It's not my strength.
That New York show was the best crowd, by the way. Those crazy fucking Long Island guys. That was just the best crowd. The energy was off the charts, and I was just getting shaken by my shoulders, like left and right. Those guys were really touchy, and it was just the best crowd. I thought that they assumed
those are your
a lot.
people.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm not from like down there, but that's okay. They felt a connection, and I'd never been shaken so much. You know, everyone was just they were taking a lot of liberties. Yeah, good for you guys.
A lot of dudes are touching you. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, guys were drinking. Guys were, you know, and guys from the 5 boroughs, Long Island, they're hands-on dudes.
Totally. We also gave them like an extra hour to drink too.
Yeah, that was
a lot of too. So it's probably
that wasn't the one I wanted to introduce my wife to the world at, but that's the one she was at, and I was just like, that was interesting.
I do like when guys will send out the bat signal, though. And it's usually for women. You know, like somebody be like, hey, in Memphis, what's good, fam? You know, and it's like, you know, just to be like, hey, I'm in Lisbon. what's cracking?
Right. Look at me.
Then every now and then I'll see somebody where now Randy Scott's going to become the default all the time. Be like, hey, folks, I'll be in Fort Worth. Come down, say hello. I'll be at the Outback.
The Outback.
On Decatur. And you're like, wait, who's like, hey, what are you doing today? Well, I had dinner plans, but Randy Scott's at the local Outback. So I think I was going to swing through there.
Yeah, we'll swing by.
Get a twisted tea with him or something. So, all right, there you go. Those are the rules for that one. Okay. Let's, we got a million passport follow-ups because apparently here's the move. And this is a culmination of a lot of different people here. Ceruti's already making a face where I know there's people following up to him.
Yeah. And I've sent the link to a lot of people. So if you're, Kyle actually hasn't hit me up. Are you good now or what?
I got to be honest that your guy. I don't love the sound of that when it comes to stuff like passports. It's probably going to require a social security number and whatever's on my passport application. I'm not sure if I want to give it to some guy. And then I looked up like Rush My Passport, which Jason Gay, who is like, we travel for work a lot, and a lot of people fuck this up. So, they use that. It's like $1,300. And you're my manager, Ceruti. So am I able to expense that or not? I think it's probably not. One, there's a little bit of red tape with the Swedes, I think, when it comes to expenses. So
yeah,
I don't think I could just throw that one, and I don't want to go that bad. So
okay, all right. First of all, there's something happening here. The dynamic that is incredible is that Ceruti has a way in, but Kyle finds the way in to be too sketchy for Kyle.
But here's the thing: it's not $1,300. That's a ripoff.
Okay, we have a solution.
My guy wouldn't do that to you.
We should stop. But again, the fact that Ceruti has a guy and Kyle's like, I don't know. Seems a little sketchy.
Yeah,
the guy needs my social security number. I don't know. He's just a guy.
Well, for passports, normally they kind of want that stuff, and I just don't believe like this is
like
just
a fixer.
Getting to know both of you. And Kyle being hesitant, while Ceruti provides the option, is just a massive role reversal that I did not expect to have take place with international travel. Yeah. The point is, we had a bunch of people come in with a similar solution. It's basically all the same. So here we go. I had to renew my passport and didn't want to wait the amount of time to mail it since I was considering traveling internationally at some point in the summer. I did the emergency route that Kyle mentions in the pod by going to one of the offices in New York City. You can schedule an appointment. You just have to call first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, I believe. Slots fill up fast. The earliest you can schedule is 14 days out. You get your passport on the same day, so that's not an issue. Sounds like Kyle has an actual flight travel plans, which if you do, show receipt of the travel plans of the passport agency. I didn't even have this, but if you are traveling to Canada or Mexico, all you have to do is show a hotel reservation, say you were driving. So I made a fully refundable reservation starting technically the day of my appointment at some random hotel in Montreal. I just had to show him the email confirmation that once I showed it to him, I canceled the reservation, had my appointment at 9 a.m., got my new passport by 3 o'clock the same day. There are other services that Ceruti mentioned, but those usually cost a bunch of money. This way is no more expensive than just mailing your passport in. So this is definitely an option if you don't want to worry about actually lining up the appointment time with your real flights to Europe or give your passport over to the third-party service. Overall, found it to be very, easy experience. We had multiple emails. I just thought that was the best description of the thing, where another guy was like, I told them I was changing my flight to that day and started punching keyboard numbers and gave him a fake confirmation number. We don't want to do that. We're talking about.
I'd rather just book and cancel. That's great.
Yeah, but if you're going to Montreal or Mexico, both within driving distance, depending on where you're at,
right,
your corners of the country, both reasonable. You going to Tijuana that afternoon?
Totally.
That's kind of on brand.
That's great. Today is 14 days from my actual real travel. So today I'll be making that call, or maybe I guess tomorrow morning, we'll see. But yeah, I would have totally done that a week ago. But thanks. I think everybody should know that. I'm sure I'm not the only one who fucks this up.
You know what else today is? The first day of the rest of your life.
That's right.
Okay.
Shit on that.
Here we go. All right. We'll just do this one because we already did all that stuff. And because this one could be a little bit longer. What's up, guys? Just quit my job at ESPN for my girlfriend.
Whoa.
All right. 23.
How does she?
He doesn't include a picture.
We don't have a picture. Okay.
This dude's got some size. He's got so much size, and I'm not sure that I even want to get that specific with it because, well, let's see. Maybe if he's already quit the job, he's already quit the job. I just didn't want the guy to expose himself too much if he was going to say stuff about ESPN. That's all, and then ruin his chances later on. Anyway, we'll just go with it. 6'6", 265. Serge Zwicker's younger brother chiming in here. Pickup comparison. Senior year Tyler Zeller at UNC. Drop step, post hook over the left shoulder is my bread and butter. I box out, run the floor, but don't have much of a left hand. All right. We like it. Not another Boris Dio. We had like 4 more Boris Dios today. I wanted to get your opinions and advice on a recent life decision I made. I apologize if this is on the longer side, but it may be relatable for some of the listeners. I currently work for ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. I got hired straight out of college, so I've been here a little over a year. I love my job in the control room, but I've been browsing other opportunities to get involved in the production content side of the industry. Backstory, when I accepted the job during my senior year, my girlfriend and I had been together about 9 months, and I knew this job meant we'd be doing long distance. She was applying to physician's assistant schools in other states, and our timelines didn't match up well enough for her to move to Connecticut with me. For reference, we graduated from UNC. I've lived in North Carolina my whole life. However, I never had a doubt that we would stay together. I just hope this guy doesn't mind everybody knowing who will be in his circle of the 6'6" guy who's 265, went to UNC, and then worked at ESPN. I mean, I'd probably find this guy in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. And I have his name, so it'd be even easier, but I'm not going to share it. I just hope nothing happens in the email where then we feel like, oh, we kind of expose this guy a bit. So anyway, I've never had a doubt that we would stay together. This is a girl I will marry whenever the time comes. But I felt that an opportunity at ESPN straight after graduating is too good to pass up, and she understood. I just figured it'd be a rough couple of years in long distance while she was in school, 2-year program, and I was working up north. PA school ended up not working out for that specific year as a result of not going to school yet. ESPN Disney's generous vacation time and some cheap flights, we were able to visit each other pretty frequently over the past year, at least a few days every 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's
Take
great.
a vacation every couple of weeks.
No, he's just figuring like vacation day. Yeah, I think that's probably what he was doing. Although I would imagine in the PA program, if you were doing like a ton of long weekends early on, right out of the gates.
Yeah, you might as well come and just be like, I'm also kind of more of a big picture guy. I'm not really into this type of stuff. Also, I need Friday off.
Well, the good thing he probably had like Tuesday, Wednesday off. So maybe the flights were cheaper. He just took the extra Thursday and he worked weekends, so they were fine with it. Yeah, it makes sense.
Little summer at Canal for him. It wasn't easy, but other people have had a lot worse doing long distance, so I'm thankful for our situation. Flash forward to now. We've been together over 2 years. Everything's going great between us. My girlfriend was recently accepted into a PA school. We're not going to say where, which means her classes start in October. 2 daunting years of strenuous studies and little free time lies ahead of her. It's become increasingly more difficult to be apart. And the thought of this doing this another 2 years with less time to visit terrified me. She happened to be in Connecticut on a visit when she got the news. Obviously, I was overjoyed for her, but after the initial excitement died down, we realized what that meant for our relationship. After some serious talks about our future and what would make us the happiest, I put in my resignation at ESPN 3 days later. Okay. This is my own decision. There was no pressure, no persuasion from her. I want to stress, if I had Caps any doubt about us being together for the long haul, I would not have made a decision like this. But like I said, she's the one. Stop. I'm all in. Stop. This was not completely out of the blue. I'd been searching for ways to move closer to home so we could be together for a few months. The more I thought about it, I know being in Connecticut without her, even with a nice job, would be miserable. My girlfriend and I have never lived together, but I've no doubt we'll be compatible. I've heard the horror stories, but they haven't deterred me. Look, somebody at some point, you have to move in with somebody, right? I'm waiting for some of my buddies to get divorced. Like, yeah, I got a spare bedroom. So this leads me to my question. What would you guys have done in this situation? How did you feel when leaving ESPN? I have no immediate regrets about the decision I made, but I would hate to look back in a few years and say, man, I wish I would have stayed at ESPN longer than 15 months. Also, as I'm sure you know, telling people you work for ESPN is pretty cool, especially for a 23-year-old. It's a great conversation starter. I've noticed people's faces light up whenever I tell them what I do for work. How do I manage this going forward and tell my friends and family, hey, I just quit a lot of people's dream job in sports without another job in place yet? I have some great connections in other places, so I'm not flying totally blind, but it's still terrifying. Huge leap of faith. I know I'll be much happier overall in my new situation. I have a month left of working in Bristol before the move takes place. Thanks again. Love the show. I think we all know what my answer would be, so why don't we just go with Ceruti here?
Well, I just did a quick Google of like, your average physician's assistant salary, which is, six figures, mid six figures, up to like 150, 160. So there's a good chance that she's going to be out earning you. The PA, it's a slow grind.
Good chance.
Yeah. So I think on just the financials alone, you made the right call. And I get the ESPN thing of like, yeah, it's cool to tell your buddies and people like randos and how awesome that kind of feels. But I will say that doesn't really last. I think, you've been there, what do you say, a couple years. So I guess maybe he really does like it. It is a cool thing. But at some point, like, I know a lot of people that got tired of that. Like, that was like the one perk that you get. Oh, I work at ESPN. Like, what else you get? Well, I work weekends and overnights and I don't see my friends. And I'm vitamin D deficient because I never see the sun because I'm working at night all the time. Like, that can't be the only thing. So yeah, it's like a bummer that you have to leave. But I kind of think you're making the right call. In all things in a perfect world, you didn't say the school. Is it? I assume it's farther away than UNC then? Is it super far away?
No.
So they just don't want to do the 2-year thing again. Yeah, I don't know. I think you're making the right call. It depends what your career is. I mean, there's a lot of other media jobs though, like there's a lot of other small pop-up, whatever, or just, new media situations that I think can fulfill you and maybe you can grow faster at, because that would be the one issue. And then the other thing is, you should be leaving jobs like every couple years as a young sort of professional. That's how you end up moving up in the world. Maybe big picture, you come back to ESPN one day and you and your wife move there. Who knows? But I think for the situation right now, if you really love this girl, you don't want to be away from her for 2 more years, which does suck. I think this is the right call.
Kyle?
I don't like it. I don't like
No.
it. I don't know. I mean, this is medical school, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's not like she's going in to be a doctor, but yeah.
But I mean, it's crammed into 2 years, right? I mean, so this is like her master's sort of deal, or this is like, I mean, either way, she's going to be super busy. I don't think you guys are going to be hanging out a ton. I don't know. I think you probably could have held out for a little bit longer. Like, wouldn't it be better to be there a little bit longer and then like maybe try to transfer or something? This seems like a story my grandfather would have told me or something like, oh, and right then and there, I quit my job because I knew it was going to be me and her, baby, against the world.
I quit the cobbler shop that day.
Right. I got on my horse and rode west. So I don't know. I think it seems like you got no plan and you got into a thing that was, I mean, getting hired at ESPN right out of college. You're already in a very small group. So I don't know. I would have probably finessed it if that's the goal. Like, maybe there's things you can do to get there, but there might have been like some sort of transition you could have worked out where it's like, yeah, now I'm working for the local news station in Durham or Charlotte or something, like something where you enjoy the career, right? And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you start beating the pavement and be like, hey, I've been at ESPN for 15 months. I'm not sure how good 15 months at ESPN looks when you're right out of college. I don't know. But I guess you're right. She's got a career and you probably won't be hurting for money eventually. But I don't know. I think you probably could have thought about you a little bit more here, even though she didn't want you to do this. I guess this was sort of a selfish move for you to just kind of up and leave. But
he is thinking about himself. Like he said, he was tired of he wanted to see her more often. So, it's okay. It's not like you turned down like an executive job at ESPN to leave. Like it's a low thing on the totem pole. And you could kind of pivot somewhere else. I do think having ESPN on your resume, if you want to work in media for 18 months, is actually a pretty good thing. You probably get a lot of at least first, you'll get at least a first interview or two more often than not because of that. So I don't know. Like I think it sounds like he's going to be happier by doing this. This is just a part of the consequence, but he wants to do this.
Yeah, I can tell he wants to do it.
I'd have to know more about like what you want to do. Okay. Do you want to be on the air? Well, then I would only stay in the control room at ESPN for like 2 years tops, right? Because eventually you got to get out of there and move on. Because guess what's not happening? You're not just going to magically be on air. I mean, granted, sometimes there would be some younger women that would be accepted into the PA program and they would show up to work like they were getting ready for a beauty pageant. and you were kind of like, what did you think was going to happen? Like they were just going to be like, hey, we're short an anchor.
Does anybody have thoughts on Brady?
Yeah.
Here you go,
breaking
hot
news.
girl from Florida. Although I think twice it may have actually happened where they were like, this person's so hot that we're just going to like throw you in front of the camera for some digital stuff.
Yeah, you're right. I talked to, there was a lot of, I hung out in the PA circles like early on in my career. And there are a lot of girls exactly the same that were, definitely good looking and thought that was going to be their pathway. And they were gone probably around a year when they realized that was not going to be the plan.
Yeah. So there's that kind of a wake up call. It's like, just get your foot in the door. If you want to be on the air, I don't think you did anything wrong. Okay. If you want to be on the production side of things, I'd have to know like where you were in the PA program and if you'd actually connected with any supervisors where you felt like there was a real path. Because the dirty little secret that they don't tell you is that the PA program and then into kind of the screening and all that kind of stuff, like it's also set up to sort of weed people out. Like who will commit to this? Who will live in this part of the country? Who will continue to not make that much money, have these fucked up schedules?
It's a little bit like boot camp, like,
just
to weed out the, for the Army or whatever. Not that it's the same. Obviously, it's a little more stressful in the Army, but like, yeah, it's just like who really wants to be here?
Right. Like I would have in my early 20s been dumb enough to then gone at 30 to be like, what happened? Like what do I do? Now, I don't know. Maybe that's not entirely true. Because I probably would have at some point been like, hey, if this isn't going the way that I envision my future. But if you want to work behind the scenes and you want to be in production and you want to be in that kind of stuff, there's two very different paths that can happen to people there. And that is, one is the things do work out, but you're going to put in the hours, you're going to make those sacrifices, and having a long distance relationship with somebody who's training to become a physician's assistant is going to put some massive strains where you and the other person would have to be on the same page. And a page would be really hard to, where you're constantly telling, hey, this is worth it. You were still my future. All the things we're saying. And I don't want to hear about Doug, who works at the orthodontist office that's super friendly. You know what I mean? Because that's what happens is, people will find attention somewhere. And if they're not getting it from you, they're going to eventually find it for somebody else. And they may not even they may not have gone into it thinking like, I actually want to move on in the relationship. It just becomes natural, some animal instincts there and all that stuff, which is a different topic altogether. So not having enough information in the email to know, and we don't need a follow-up, but not knowing what your true goals are. Because I think too, when we've touched on this, sometimes guys will write in and I can tell they want to be on air, but they're really hesitant about just being like, oh, maybe this, maybe a little on air, maybe a little production, maybe a little behind the scenes, maybe some digital stuff or whatever. It's like, no, you want to be on the air. You want to be on the air. And when you want to be on the air, you can't say the rest. You have to say, I want to be on the air. That's it. All I want to do is be on the air. So I don't think you did anything wrong if that's what you want. And the chances of it working out for you on a timeline that matches a girlfriend who's living this far away from you was not realistic if it wasn't on air. If it was just production, or I'd like to be, a segment producer, I'd like to be the main producer for SportsCenter. I'd love to be the main producer for Game Day down the road. I'd like to be one of those guys. That was going to take a really, really long time. And the odds are probably stacked against you if it's even working. So there's a chance where you could have stayed in the program, and maybe it wasn't, the PA program strictly, and then you got a job after it. You could have been in that for a really long time. The industry has changed dramatically very quickly. There are opportunities all over the place. I actually think you made the right call, because you have to be single-minded. You have to fucking love it. And you have to be willing to make some serious personal sacrifices to get through that and break through the next stage of actually being somebody in management thinks can have a future that's like a 10, 20-year future at the company, which is something when you get out of school, you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, I'm going to be working at ESPN. I'm going to be producing Monday Night Football one day. It's like, maybe the fact that the path exists is kind of cool, but in this phase of your life, to have a couple people think it's cool after a couple beers, be like, what's it like? What's it like? And then you tell them all the stories that we would tell everybody and be like, oh, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like that. I would say you made the right call based on all the math of it all. And speaking of math, do you think you're going to get hotter at 6'6", 270? Start when you're 30, that size, 6'7", 6'6", 270. That's not for everybody.
The other thing is, did she want to move? Did she want to move? It doesn't. I would assume that had a weighted decision, like whether you've waited 2 years, was she going to move to Connecticut?
She had to wait till she got in, right? And then that's where you get a job, right?
Yeah, look, sometimes when people break up over it, it really doesn't have anything. It's like, well, this isn't going to happen, so we didn't even have to go over any of that stuff. But like when you hear about the long distance stuff not working out, most of the time it isn't because the person stops caring about the other person. It's just the convenience of it. Get done with a late night session, cuddle buddy, and you're out there cutting fucking Padres highlights at 2 a.m.
That sounds bad.
Can't talk right now. We're going to extras. So, yeah, that setup, that initial first phase for somebody who's not on the air at ESPN, you got to make some real sacrifices. And if you're in love with somebody living multiple states over, I think you made the right call.
Yeah, I guess he didn't walk away from more than just the possibility of something cool working out after years. Like it wasn't like he walked away from like a great gig at ESPN. I guess I didn't.
Yeah, right.
Factor
the odds
that into
are
it.
that's, I think, who knows? You may have fucking killed it and gotten everything you ever wanted. And the on-air and not on-air thing is an important part of the distinction between like what but you're right, Kyle. The odds are this early on, you didn't leave anything that was so significant that you can't get back in some other way.
Yeah, you left as a tier 4 quarterback, right? I said no, it's say. You left as a we don't know.
Right, tier 4 though in Shanahan's system.
Okay.
If you would want to call it Shanahan's system. It depends. I mean, look, it was Shanahan's system without question for a long time. I do think the job is very different now, just in general. I think the place is different. I think the vibe around Bristol is very different from what it was when I at least, but I guess when I got there in 2006, people were probably saying, oh, it's not the same, so maybe I'm just saying what everybody else says as they get older, but I don't think I'm wrong on that one. All right. There you go. That's Life Advice. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Steve. Ryen Russillo Podcast. Ringer, Spotify. Life Advice is brought to you by Modelo, the mark of a fighter.